Today, I'm reviewing Qatar Airways economy class on a 6-hour flight from London to Doha, and since they've been rated the best airline in the world for the last 5 out of 6 years by Skytrax, I thought it was time to put them to the test and see if Qatar Airways really are as good as people say. And spoiler alert, this was an excellent flight with only a few conceivable issues, so sit back and enjoy the ride. And starting off at London Heathrow Terminal 4, we actually encounter pretty much the only bad thing about the whole experience. The check-in queue was long, taking just over 30 minutes to clear. But to be fair, this was probably our fault as we only arrived at the airport 1.5 hours before departure. But just bear in mind the queues can be long and plan to arrive at the airport at least 2 hours before departure, and you should be fine. Anyway, we dropped off our bags just 5 minutes before check-in closed and security was much quicker. Plus they have those new scanners that don't require removing laptops and liquids, so we basically walked right through. Our gate today was gate 2, right here, a 2-minute walk from security. Whilst in the past, I've had gate 25 over here, which is a 10 or 15 minute walk. And boarding started pretty much as soon as we arrived, so besides the slow check-in, everything else was very smooth. I couldn't get a good view of the plane from our gate though, so instead, here's a great view of another random 777-300 I saw after landing in Doha. Same aircraft type, but different registration. Whilst waiting for our boarding group, I also got a bit of plane spotting in. Here's a Qatar A380, also heading to Doha just half an hour before our flight. They do up to 10 flights a day between Heathrow and Doha, so you'll pretty much always see at least one of their planes here. Also, there was a Malaysia Airlines Airbus A350 about to head to Kuala Lumpur. I flew that 2 years ago and it became my most viewed video ever, so shameless plug asking people to watch that too. And I think they're a severely underrated airline by the way, with some of the best food I've had, for economy at least. Now before we step on board, here are the stats and route map for today's flight, where we would fly over Europe, Turkey and Iraq before landing into Doha almost 20 minutes early on what would be a very smooth and uneventful flight. Also, random fact, on the day we flew the temperature in Doha was 43 degrees, so I was glad we didn't have a bus gate. Stepping on board, we were greeted by some smiley cabin crew and headed to our seats, 21A and B, and we paid £50 each for what QR called preferred seats near the front of the cabin. Only reason I did this is because we had a 2-hour transfer, and I wanted to ensure we got off the plane quickly in case of any delays, because as you can see from the seat map, they have 3 separate economy cabins. But as it happened, we were early anyway, so it didn't matter. Now looking at the seat, it's really good with excellent legroom, and it's very well cushioned, making it perfect for long haul flights. The seat back pocket has 3 separate pouches, so that's handy, and I also found the seats are very tall, which gives quite good privacy for economy class. Also, part of the reason I chose this seat was for that great engine view. And back to the seat, you get a folding tray table, a USB port, and for some reason an Ethernet port, so leave a comment if you have any idea what that could be used for. There's a power socket under the seat, then your bog standard fleece blanket and relatively well sized pillow, and I guess I appreciate that they provide both on a 6-hour daytime flight, as I've flown some airlines who wouldn't on a flight of this length. And then the very last feature is this adjustable headrest. Headphones are decent for economy class, and I find them better than the in-ear headphones many airlines provide. And they even give you a little hand wipe, something many airlines also don't bother with these days. Then the last thing about the seat is the entertainment system, and this plane is actually one of Qatar Airways' older cabins, so the screen looks a bit dated, but the screen itself was actually fine and has the same slick interface you see on all of their aircraft. It was also a decent size at 10.6 inches, which isn't as good as the 13-inch screens you get on Emirates economy for example, but it's comparable to most major airlines. The movie and TV selection was extensive, so no complaints there. The only thing that confused me is that the map seemed to be stuck in Arabic and I couldn't find a way to change it, and this only affected the map too, everything else was in English. Also, they have this slightly dated TV remote, which I personally never use, but I guess it's there if you need it. And lastly, before the safety video, it has a good picture-in-picture function, so you can watch movies whilst also looking at the map in a smaller window, or vice versa. Now here's the Muslim travel prayer and the safety video featuring Kevin Hart.
I should have. Oh, I ain't gonna lie, need the world's greatest safety video.
You know, they say a lot of these safety videos are no nonsense. How about we just call it what it is? Unimaginative, uninventive, flat out boring.
Exactly.
And just on the safety video, they say they don't want it to be no nonsense, which is a direct call out to Emirates, who make a point of saying how no nonsense their safety video is. So Qatar Airways video is definitely a bit more interesting than Emirates, but it's still not the greatest in the world like they say it is. I also spotted this weird wingless and tailless plane, so leave a comment if you know why that's there. And now it's time for takeoff, and we got a great view of all the planes parked at London Heathrow, even if the weather was a little grey. Service started with a drink and a bag of crunchy corn snacks. I got a ginger ale to drink, and then I also asked for a coffee and they made me some. Actually quite impressive, as most airlines would just tell you they only serve coffee after the main meal, so props to Qatar Airways for being accommodating there. Then for the main meal, it was a choice of beef or vegetarian pasta, and I got the beef, and presentation and portion wise this was great. However, taste wise, it was one of the blandest meals I can remember having on a plane. Not bad, just bland. So a bit more flavour or maybe some salt and pepper on the side would be nice. You do get metal cutlery though, which is a plus. And also a first for me on plane, focaccia bread, though it was a bit stodgy. Then after the meal, hot drinks and Biscoff were served. And now for the loo review. It was kept clean, but that's about it. Just a normal airplane toilet otherwise. Though it did have a lot of mirrors, as you can see here. Another very strong point for this flight was the free super fast Starlink Wi-Fi. It worked flawlessly, was super fast, and they also let you watch live sport if you use the QR code on the TV. It was fast enough to watch YouTube videos in 1080p with no issue, and so far they've just rolled out Starlink to almost all of their Boeing 777s and some of their Airbus A350s, but eventually it will come to all Qatar Airways fleet, though that might be a long way. And very lastly, before landing, we were served a light snack with a choice of chicken or vegetarian pastry. And I have to say, the harissa chicken roll was better than the Greg sausage roll, as sacrilegious as that may be to some UK viewers. Into land, we got a view of these crazy private mansions, each one on their own private island. Though I have to say, if I paid that much money for a private island, I might get a bit annoyed by the sound of planes constantly flying over. So here we are in Doha, where the outside temperature was 43 degrees at the time of arrival, and I'm happy to report it was a very good flight. Only just over 6 hours, so you could barely class it as long haul really, but they did get 2 meal services in and the crew were really good throughout, so I would happily book Qatar Airways on a proper long haul flight in the future. And between today's flight and the connecting flight I took with them in business class, I think Qatar Airways are probably now my favourite Middle Eastern airline, just slightly ahead of Emirates and Etihad. though I'm flying Etihad next month from London to Singapore and back, so we'll see if they get some redemption there. And I've made a bid to upgrade to business on one of those flights, so hopefully that comes through. Now very lastly, I was connecting onwards to Ho Chi Minh City after this, and the last time I transferred in Doha, we had to go for a security check, so I was pleasantly surprised when we walked off the plane straight into the terminal. Anyway, that meant our 2-hour layover was more than enough time, and we had a good chance to explore the airport, especially this cool rainforest area. Now without further ado, here's my final score for Qatar Airways Economy Class. Really, my only gripe with the entire experience was how bland the main meal was, but literally everything else was well above average, so I can forgive them for that. Definitely earning their rank as one of the world's best airlines. So after all that, Qatar Airways will keep their ranking of 9 out of 10 on my airline tier list, just below Singapore Airlines, which I must admit I still prefer, but that's probably just down to personal preference. And they're also just ahead of Emirates and Etihad by the skin of their teeth.
Welcome on board.
Now here's a quick preview of my next flight in Qatar's 787 business class on a flight to Ho Chi Minh City, which I've already published, so click the link in the description or the top right corner to see that. It was also a fantastic flight, despite not being in the Q Suite seat. And coming soon, I'll have reviews of Vietnam Airlines, China Eastern, and a cool hotel on the island of Phu Quoc, so stay tuned for all that and more. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and goodbye.